because she receives the same that wants to get married. They're legally. Ever since I've been involved with the Marathon County Dems, Tammy Baldwin has personally Baldwin brought to pass and interracial marriages. Now, LGBTQ Americans in those interracial marriages across Wisconsin can feel reassured knowing their marriage is safe. Additionally, Tammy Baldwin is an advocate for reproductive freedom. Supported legislation that would protect rights to abortion, protect rights to travel across state lines, to get reproductive health care, and safeguard access to contraception. There the election to speak with undecided voters and urge them to vote democratically, which would ensure everyone is able and valued in their community. With all
Hey. Thank you, Samuel. Hey.
Perfect. We're going to have to use our outdoor mic. Hi, everybody. I am Rachel Zentner. I am a small business owner and a mental health practitioner here in Wasau, Wisconsin. And I already know, based on her voting record, that she supports me in my professional endeavors. What I'm here today to talk about is speaking to you as a woman. I have to admit my complacency, my ignorance, and my privilege, because I was sitting back just simply enjoying my rights as a woman. I never thought that in my lifetime that I would hear that the Constitution that my great-grandmother worked so hard for as a suffragette, or that my grandmother worked so hard to have a job as a nurse when her peers were working. She was providing health care for women, as well as my mother and her peers who were there to see Roe versus Wade ushered into law. I never thought in my lifetime that any of that could ever be undone. I never thought I'd hear Supreme Court justices speak so openly and freely that they are coming for birth control next. And I never thought in my free and my wonderful country that I would ever hear that that my friends that are physicians or that myself as a provider could be threatened for simply showing up and doing our jobs. And so forgive me for showing up late, but I am showing up now. I am showing up for my daughters. I'm showing up for my friends and myself. I'm showing up for my mother and grandmother and great-grandmother. Senator Baldwin has my full support. I voted early and I encourage everyone to do so because she defends me. She defends all of us. She shows up for me. She shows up for my daughters. So I need her to be there to keep fighting for us. That's why I voted for Senator Baldwin. And next I get the privilege of introducing a very important man that is in my life. He is a hunter and he is a farmer. He is a businessman and he's my husband. This is Nick Sandquist.
Thank you. As my wife said, my name is Nick Sandquist. I'm the general manager at Sioux Ginseng Farms here in town. Normally, when I speak regarding politics, it's a negative. It's about the tariffs. Ginseng currently has a 40% tariff on it. So if we send out $1 million container, the company receiving it needs to pay $400,000 to the Chinese government, and it turns out to be $1.4 million in product they received for the $1 million. But today what I wanted to talk about is positive that is never spoken about on the other side, and something that I think Senator Baldwin, works great on, and it's common sense when it comes to immigration. Our company, the founder, Paul Stu, came to this country just over 60 years ago on a graduate student visa. 50 years ago, and he started as a social worker here in Wisconsin. 50 years ago, he started Sioux Ginseng Enterprises. Around 40 years ago, in the 1980s, the Hmong and Laotian people came here from Laos after fighting the Cold War alongside the United States. They have been people who have worked out in the fields with us for the last 30, 35 years. And there are people who I've known for 35 years, being in the business that long, who are still there today. When I left the farm just 2 hours ago, they were still there after 30, 35 years. We have Chinese people at the enterprise. They come over on H-1B visas, and they come and they work and they stay as long as their visa allows, and if they're able to, by law, they stay. And a couple of small points that occur as well. We currently have Afghani folks as well as Rohingya people who escaped ethnic cleansing in Burma, working for us as well. So we have a lot of different races, a lot of different cultures. The joke is always that I got an English degree and I work with so many different, native speakers or non-native speakers. But finally, the final piece that I wanted to speak about is we have on the farm 20 Mexican employees who come in via an H-2A visa program. They live here for 9 or 10 months out of the year, away from their families, and they work 10 hours a day. We don't bring them here because we want to. It's expensive. We have to provide housing for them. We have to provide transportation for them. We have to pay visa fees, and quite honestly, the H-2A visa program is a long process. The employees actually leave, or we actually start beginning next year's applications before the employees even leave. So it's a long, tedious process. But the greatest thing about that program is that we've got a guy who's leaving tomorrow. He's leaving early. He's going home because he's beginning a family with his wife. He's 28. He's been here 9 years. And I spoke with him the other day in regards to leaving and beginning the family, and he was so appreciative because the money he had made here in Wisconsin through our company, he had used to buy a farm in Mexico. The majority of guys who work here take their money home and get their kids through college in Mexico, get them through the university there. I enjoy looking at Facebook in the off season, the 3 months when they're not here. A lot of them are taking vacations with their families. And it feels great knowing that we can be a part of that. And I think too much of what we hear is negatives about immigration. And these are just some of the great success stories. It doesn't fail to dawn on me that I won the lottery by being born on this side of Florida. And I think a lot of people forget that. That everybody just wants an opportunity to be successful and prove what they're capable of doing. So, and with that, I introduce Senator Coons from Delaware.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much, Rachel, for sharing of your life and your experience, the service that you provide, the hard work that you're doing, the opportunities that you are building together for folks here in Marathon County in Wasau. Thank you, Sam, for sharing of your life and your story. And let's please also, thank you, Sam, let's also please thank and recognize the former mayor, who I've just lost track of, who was here a moment ago. He's now running environmental justice programs here. It is wonderful to be back in Wasau, and it is even more wonderful to be sitting alongside one of my favorite colleagues in the U.S. Senate. Tammy Baldwin is a hard worker. She's a fighter. She's willing to reach across the aisle and solve problems, but she sticks by her principles and sticks to her guns. She is someone I am very proud to have the chance to travel with, to speak about in communities across the state of Wisconsin. You know her, but in case somehow you don't, we both got our start in local government and county government. She went from county government to the state legislature, to the House of Representatives, to the U.S. Senate. And she's taken of her own life the lessons and experiences she had, from a childhood illness to the challenges with mental health her mother faced, to the issues her grandparents had getting affordable, quality health care, and has been tireless in working to make sure that others have fair, affordable, equal access to opportunity, to health care, to afford child care, to rebuild manufacturing, to reinvest in our infrastructure, to make the economy here in Wisconsin fairer and more positive, more inclusive, one where from agriculture to manufacturing, there's a brighter future. We've done some amazing work in Washington in the last 4 years. We've passed big, bold legislation that reinvests in manufacturing and infrastructure, that helps take care of our veterans, that puts a record amount of money into community mental health, that deals with gun safety, and that tries to push back on tariffs. But all of this is at risk if we don't elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, the next president and vice president of the United States, and if we don't return my friend and colleague, Tammy Baldwin, to the U.S. Senate. So folks, please give a really strong Wasau, Marathon County welcome to my friend and colleague, Tammy Baldwin.
Thank you, Chris. And I mean, how lucky am I that Chris Coons comes all the way from Delaware in these closing days, and we're on a bus tour. This is day 3, 5-day bus tour. We're going to do 1,300 miles before all is said and done, and this is our 10th event of the bus tour. So it's really great to be here. I want to remind you first and foremost of what everybody here knows, and that is we are the battleground state. Wisconsin will decide which candidate becomes the next president of the United States. Yeah. I mean, we're the tipping point state in 16, and we were the tipping point state in 20. I see every reason why we are this time, too. No pressure. We're going to decide which party controls the United States Senate and which party controls the House of Representatives. And I think about how close some of our races have been in past years. We know that Trump won Wisconsin in 16 with 0.7%, and that Joe Biden won in 2020 with 0.6%. Oh my gosh, crazy tight. But I don't want everyone to go around feeling like the weight of the world is on their shoulder, because really, when you think about it, those tight margins means it comes down to 1 or 2 people per ward or precinct all across the state. And just think about your ability to find that one person in your family, in your neighborhood. It's just, I don't think I'm gonna vote. Maybe it's when you go to the hardware store and you're talking to the person, who's the clerk at the cash register, or the person if you stop by a restaurant who's bringing your food out. You just find that one person. And if you do it collectively, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. Yes, we are. So I want to say a couple words about what's at stake in my race. And then I know that many of you are going to do doors, make calls, do all sorts of activities to make sure that we bring people out to the polls. And so I want to give a little bit of advice, although Rachel, Nick, and Sam have already modeled what I'm going to talk about, and so I'll double down on it in a moment. But for those of you who aren't following my Senate race closely, you may have noticed that they had to go all the way to California to recruit a deep-pocketed opponent against me. So Eric Hovde owns a $3 billion California bank. He owns a $7 million home in Laguna Beach, California. And he's been named one of Orange County's more influential people 3 years in a row. We have a brown county. We have a green county. We do not have an Orange County, Wisconsin. But that levity aside, on the issues, it could not be a more significant or clear difference. My opponent wants to repeal the Affordable Care Act in its entirety. I helped write it. I actually wrote the provision that allows young people to stay on their parents' health insurance until they turn 26. And that provision created the opportunity for millions to have health care that previously didn't. Chris Coons was generous in his introduction to talk about my struggles as a child. I had a pre-existing health condition as a child and didn't have insurance for my entire youth. And I grew up believing that was wrong. And so to get the opportunity in public service to tell those powerful health insurance companies, you can no longer discriminate based on a pre-existing condition or even an existing condition, like somebody struggling with cancer or with diabetes or with asthma. We got that done. And we can do big things, but not if Eric Hovde becomes the next U.S. Senator. With regard to our reproductive choice, Eric Hovde cheered when the Dobbs decision came down overturning Roe v. Wade. I am leading the effort to restore Roe nationwide with the Women's Health Protection Act. On taxes, Eric Hovde favors a $4 trillion tax giveaway to wealthy people like himself and big corporations. Meanwhile, I am fighting to bring down taxes for working people with the child tax credit, earned income tax credit, and the ability to put up a down payment for a first home. And for entrepreneurs to be able to deduct their upfront expenses that they undertake before they ever open their door or even earn their first dollar. That's what we should be doing with our tax code. But how would Eric Hovde pay for that $4 trillion tax cut? By cutting Social Security and Medicare and making cuts across the board. He calls for the elimination of the Department of Education. He calls for a 1/3 cut in the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Look, the stakes couldn't be higher. Our very democracy rests on this. But you're the ones who are going to get out that word. And so I wanted to offer just 2 pieces of advice when you're doing that. The first is start with your why. Why are you taking time out of a busy schedule? You could be doing something very different on a Monday afternoon, but you're here and you're preparing to do more. Start with your why. Sam, as I said, you modeled that in how you started. You said, why am I involved in this campaign? And you told us. And it was a very powerful connection. And Rachel, you did too. You said, I might not have been out there doing this sort of thing in elections past. And then all of a sudden I woke up one day and found that I had fewer rights than my mother and my grandmother had. And you resolved to do something about it. And Nick, your story about how we should be much more embracing of our fellow, what is it, Wasauian? How would I say that?
Wasonian.
Wasonian. I'm so sorry I didn't know that. Oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. We should be embracing our fellow citizens here and non-citizens here who are coming here to work. And you've said your why. That's why you're here. Start your conversations, whether it's your family members, your neighbors, your friends, when you're doing canvassing, with why you're there. And then close the deal. So I have a story to tell on that. There's a former Speaker of the House of Representatives named Tip O'Neill. Tip O'Neill, he was very well known at the time. He wrote a book called All Politics is Local. People usually remember the title, but they don't remember all the chapters. One of the chapters is called You Gotta Ask. So he tells the story of when he's first running for Congress, and he and his wife are proceeding to go vote. It's election day. So they leave their home, and they see the neighbor, Mrs. O'Brien. And Mrs. O'Brien looks at Tip and said, you know, I voted for you even though you never asked. And he was just taken aback and hearing that. He thought about all the times that he helped her, shovel her driveway or do something that was difficult for her. And she follows on, Mrs. O'Brien does, and she says, people like to be asked. And he took that to heart, and he and his wife proceeded to the polling place. And just before they separated for their each other's, for the booth to cast their vote, Tip looked at his spouse and said, "Darling, can I have your vote?" And she responded, "I'll give it every due consideration." But it's a good reminder. People do like to be asked. So you make your case at the door, you tell them your why, you make the case, and then you say, "Can I have your vote?" I'm going to model it right now. I'm asking for your support. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you, thank you. But you can close the deal with the people you're talking to, too. Can Kamala have your vote? Can Tammy have your vote? Once you've said yes, it's a deal. We've reached a deal, and people feel more of an obligation to follow through on that. So state your why, make your case, close the deal. That's what it's going to take in these remaining days. And thank you for being willing to do the hard work. We're going to get this done.
With the bus in the background.
Thanks for all the attention. He needs it. Thank you. He loves you. He's a big fan.
Come on in, everybody, real quick.
I just want to shake your hand. It's an honor to meet you.
It's great to meet you.
This is my dog. He's going a little crazy. But
With a Christmas tie already.
yeah, just in time.
Just a little.
Just kind of what I pulled out. But
What's your dog's name?
his name is Name because he had no name for a year and a half. Picked him up off the street. Yeah, you gotta get closer. I'm peeling you away.
Are you looking right here? Let's see those Tammy signs, back row. Back row only. Look here, 1, 2, 3, right here. All right.
Great.
Nice. All right.
All right, way to go.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Not going back.
We're not. Forward.
That's the motto of our state, isn't it?
It sure is.
Okay. Can I ask you one random question? So Grant Cardone was speaking at the Trump event. He's a well-known Scientologist. In the internet world, it's increasingly clear that there's an effort. There's some lawmakers who are looking at revealing, taking away their tax-exempt status. Would you potentially look at that to get the IRS to kind of refocus and maybe just re-examine? They're under investigation for child labor trafficking, for example.
Yeah, I think certainly targeted investigations when we have seen, religious organizations take part in political things.
Yeah, which they have, yeah.
And so, but I just think they need to have the power to investigate and then enforce laws that already are on there,
Right.
on the books.
Good for you. So you'd look into that, and if you saw any violations, potentially,
well, I would
not
have-
to put you on the spot, you'd
I
have
was
to do
gonna
some
say, I would
research.
have the
Yeah.
Department of Treasury look
Cool.
into it.
That's all I want to hear.
They
Well,
got
right.
They got better investigators than,
Yes,
than me.
but you could push them in that direction. So that's nice to hear your answer. I think that means you're a good candidate for this, obviously. But supported you before. Thank you. Appreciate it. Cool. All right, we'll talk. I was able to answer your question. All right, guys, I'm here to take my dog to the park. So, hey, we got Tammy Baldwin on Scientology. That was cool. I was supposed to be at a J.D. Vance event, and I'll explain why. The biggest headache today, apparently I have a suspended license, which I had no idea. I didn't pay a ticket for a stop sign. So the cops, they didn't arrest me, but I had to pull over and pull in to a gas station and then take an Uber. And I was going to take the dog to the park because I missed the J.D. Vance event. And then coincidentally, this is right here. Hey, I'm gonna take your leaf. There we go. Typical political answer. Yeah, it was a bit of a non-answer. At least she said she'd look into it. It's Trump or communism, not a very difficult choice. I wouldn't put it that way, but you know, we're all entitled to how we feel, I suppose. She just passed it back. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Exactly what her letter said. Yeah, at least she is sort of aware of it. You're welcome, Amy. Figured I should ask. I'll definitely clip that. She won't do anything. I mean, look, it looks like if there's. Oh wait, guys, I gotta end the stream because